Hi everyone, and welcome to the Middle American Realm. We're looking at Chapter 4 and 4A and 4B. So here is a shot of the area that we're looking at. The physiographic map, Middle America is a relatively small region area-wise. It's the second smallest realm. We can see that it is wide, wider rather than it is long. And although this region is small, it's very densely populated. In 2012, the population was 200 million, and more than half of those people were located in Mexico. As far as geographical features are concerned, we're looking at the longest land border between realms, which is 1,969 miles. One of the things that makes Middle America sufficiently distinct from North and South America is that it consists of a patchwork of independent states, territories, and political transitions, and residual colonial dependence. The textbook discusses the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, which enabled border crossing for commercial profit. But the distance between the U.S. and Middle America, while they share a border, couldn't be further apart when we're talking about the economic gap between the two neighbors. The increase in manufacturing in the maquiladoras has had a positive effect, but has also made Mexico prone to economic crises in the U.S. As far as geographical features, we're looking at a troubled border zone. In 2005, the U.S. began to crack down on drug smuggling and illegal immigration across the border. Immigrants across the border seeking better lives and financial opportunity, and anywhere from 200 to 500 people die every year trying to cross the border. The cocaine produced in South America travels to the U.S. via the U.S.-Mexico border. Juarez is a hotbed for the drug trade. There was an attempt to build a fortified fence along the border, but the project was abandoned. As far as physical geography, we're looking at a land bridge. So Middle America is home to the Panamanian Isthmus, and I'm going to draw a circle around that on my map here. So here's the Panamanian Isthmus, which is a narrow strip of land that links North America to South America. This land bridge was crucial to enabling migration throughout our history. Physical geography. We're looking at island chains. There are about 7,000 islands in the Caribbean Sea, in an area that runs from Cuba and the Bahamas, moving east, and continuing south to Trinidad. We'll look closer at some of these islands when we study the regions of Middle America. Physical geography, again, we're looking at some dangerous landscapes. There are fault lines along the North American and Caribbean plates, so there's a real danger of earthquakes, such as the massive one that hit Haiti in 2010. This area is also prone to tropical storms and hurricanes due to the warm ocean water that heats the moist air and fuels evolving storms. Hurricane season lasts from June 1st to December 1st, and the high season for hurricanes is in August and September. Having grown up on the East Coast, I've experienced a number of hurricanes and tropical storms. In 2003, Hurricane Isabel hit, and we were without power for 10 days. We look at the cultural geography here. There's a Mesoamerican legacy. So Middle America has a really rich cultural legacy, and in this realm we refer to the Mesoamerican cultural hearth, from which new ideas radiated and whose population expanded to make intellectual and material progress. This hearth is interesting because it spanned very different geographic environments, and each culture had to adapt to their environment. So the lowland Maya, located in the tropical plains, where we now delineate northern Guatemala, Belize, and the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, this civilization arose more than 3,000 years ago, and its people built giant cities containing stone pyramids and enormous temples. The population totaled between 2 and 3 million, and this culture is known for creating a cotton-based textile industry, developing an advanced writing system, domesticating animals, and studying astrology. Next, you look at the highland Aztecs, located north of present-day Mexico City. And they were responsible for the first true urban center in the Western Hemisphere, Teotihuacan, which prospered for almost 7 centuries. The Aztecs expanded their empire through conquest, developed complex irrigation systems, and grew many crops that we enjoy today. We're also looking at the Spanish conquest. So the Aztecs were defeated by the Spanish in the early 16th century, not just by conquest, but by diseases brought from Europe and Africa via the slaves that they imported, and they themselves imported. The Spanish made a huge dent in the forestry by constructing buildings out of wood, and they introduced livestock which people had to compete with for food. We're really looking at what we call a collision of cultures here. So despite the Spanish conquest, we're still really looking at a patchwork of cultures, including the Amerindians, the Spanish, and other European influences. Panama was a target for Spanish conquest as well, although in the map of colonial conquest, we'll see that British, French, and even the Dutch played a role. Here's the map of colonial spheres of the Caribbean region. The British gained a foothold in the Caribbean mainland, south of the Yucatan Peninsula, but we see the Spanish conquest of Cuba and half of Hispaniola, right? So that's this island here. That's Hispaniola, and the Dominican Republic is the Spanish half. The French conquered the other half. We also see a variety of different influences in the Caribbean basin, from the British-controlled Jamaica, the Danish Virgin Islands, over here, and we see French Martinique, etc. So here's the slide. Here's the map that divides the mainland from the rimland. There are regional contrasts we should be aware of when we examine Middle America, specifically the divide between these two. The mainland dominated by Spanish and Amerindian influences, and the rimland, which is dominated by European and African influences. And we can see the difference in the kinds of agriculture of each part of the region. As far as political and economic fragmentation, figure 488 is really a really telling image, because we can see the higher GDP of Mexico and Panama due to their locations. So let's take a quick look at the regions of Middle America. We'll tackle the largest region first, which is Mexico. Mexico itself is very regionally diverse. So we have varieties of physiographic, demographic, economic, historical, and cultural criteria that illustrate this. Climate-wise, we're similar to parts of the southwest U.S., but more tropical on the whole. In that core area down here, which I'm gonna try to highlight. Oops. Let's see if I can highlight that with my. So there's the core area. We have Mexico City, which is home to almost 330 million people and 26% of the population. Here's the map of the states of Mexico. There are 31 states within Mexico. We can see throughout that the core and in the west, the population is quite concentrated. We learned that 77% of the Mexican population lives in towns and cities, but there are still remote parts of the country where there's been less modernization. For historical context, Mexico freed itself from Spanish rule in the early 19th century, and the revolution that began in 1910 created a constitution which granted land to many communities. We talked earlier about the maquiladoras and the effect that the U.S. economy has had over Mexico's industrial economy in the NAFTA zone, and the text talks about the north-south divide in terms of per capita income. So next we're looking at the Central American republics. We've already seen the land bridge that's formed by the Isthmus and Panama. We're looking at 7 countries in this region: Guatemala, Belize, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. As far as the population of Central America goes, we see small populations in this region. 15 million in Guatemala, about 300,000 in Belize. Guatemala has been affected by political infighting. Belize resembles more of a Caribbean island and produces a number of commercial crops. Tourists also travel to Belize to see the Mayan ruins. Honduras was devastated by a hurricane in 1998 and has the third poorest economy in the realm after Haiti and Nicaragua. El Salvador is the smallest country territorially, but at 6.4 million has a population 21 times as large as the population of Belize, so it's very densely populated. Nicaragua was also struck by Hurricane Mitch, still recovering. Costa Rica, a democratic nation that has had no standing army for the last 60 years, enjoys the region's highest standard of living. And then finally, we have Panama, home to the canal that was opened in 1914 and the center of a great deal of trade and economic activity. The Caribbean Basin is our last region. Our main focus is the Greater Antilles of Cuba, Hispaniola, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. Of these islands, which constitute 90% of the region, Cuba is the largest in territory and in population. Since achieving independence at the end of the 19th century, Cuba has had a tumultuous and strained history with its neighbor, the U.S. Jamaica was a member of the British Commonwealth and has a population of 2.8 million and is heavily supported by the tourist industry. Haiti, we've seen that on the left side of the island of Hispaniola, has been affected by natural disasters that have wrought havoc on its already poor population. The Dominican Republic constitutes the right half of this island and has more natural resources than its western neighbor. And Puerto Rico has a complicated relationship with the U.S. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, but are governed by the Puerto Rican Federal Relations Act, which operates under its own constitution. The Lesser Antilles then include the Bahamas, which is a former British colony. It includes Trinidad and Tobago, Curacao, Aruba, and Saint Martin, the latter three of which are considered countries within the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And that is the Middle American presentation.